Welcome to the Fall 2023 TinySeed Application Information Session. I am, of course, Rob Walling. I'm the co-founder of TinySeed, and I'll be one of your hosts today. So the reason we do this live stream is to answer all, I would say, listener questions, but it's folks who are considering applying to TinySeed, folks like yourself that are watching this. The first one we did, we were concerned that there would be 3 questions and then it would just trail off and we would end early. Every time we do it, we are answering questions right up until the very last minute. So this is a completely live in front of a studio audience. You might be watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You can submit questions through any of those avenues. I think YouTube is preferred for my team, but they will monitor the others. And of course, MicroConf Connect. So you might be wondering why the TinySeed application info session is on the MicroConf YouTube channel. And of course, that is because TinySeed is the funding arm of MicroConf. MicroConf has a lot of offerings, right? We have in-person events. We have our online community, MicroConf Connect. We have mastermind matching. We have our State of Independent SaaS. We have our YouTube channel. We have all these things to help bootstrapped founders get there faster. And one part of that, MicroConf's been around for 13 years, but TinySeed's been around for 5 years. About 5 years ago, we said, you know what? Giving funding to bootstrappers can help them get there faster. And so that's why we kind of commingle these things on this channel. You are able to submit questions through any of the channels I mentioned earlier. Again, YouTube's probably preferred, MicroConf Connect, and then wherever else you're seeing this. And my team, producer Ron and assistant producer Dan, are monitoring those. And with that, I want to get quickly into my, get my co-hosts on so we can start answering your questions because again, we usually fill up the full hour with it. So with that, I'd like to bring on my first co-host, Tracy Osborn. She is Tracy Makes on Twitter. Welcome, Tracy. You want to tell folks a little bit about yourself, what you do at TinySeed?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Like Rob said, I'm Tracy. I'm the program director of TinySeed. So my job really is keeping the ships running on time. And I also directly manage the Americas Accelerator because we have 2 different locations. Super excited to be here. I want to say it's like my 8th time. I should have counted it. Like, how many times have we done this info session? It's just great to get to where we are right now and, you know, watching those years rack by and the portfolio get larger over time.
Yeah. So speaking of the portfolio, we funded just north of 130 companies over the past 5 years. We started doing a single batch a year, very small, and then we've expanded because there's so much interest from founders. So now we do 2 batches a year in Americas, 2 batches a year in our EMEA program, 4 batches. We're funding a lot of companies. We'll have funded north of 200 here in the next, I think, 18 months?
Soon,
it's always hard to do math. So, yeah, thanks for being here today, Tracy. And again, folks, you can submit your questions. A funny thing I always reflect on is when we enter these, since you've said, you know, we did 7, 8 of these info sessions, and I always think we're going to get the same questions over and over, and inevitably we do not. We always get new questions, which is pretty exciting.
I told people to stump me, so we'll see what comes through.
I wouldn't invite that. I want people to heckle. I want to heckle.
Yeah, there we go.
With that, let's bring our EMEA program manager on to the live stream. This is Alex McQuade. Alex, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everyone. I'm Alex McQuade. Like Tracy mentioned, we have 2 regions that we focus on, Americas, and my region is EMEA. So that's Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So if you're in that region, we'll be working together, spending a lot of time through the program year, and super excited to answer your questions today. This is always a fun time to dive into and chat with all the founders.
And in case you didn't know, our applications are open. They officially opened 2 days ago on Monday, the 4th? September.
4th. I think it's 4th.
And they're open for just under 2 weeks. They end next Friday, which is September.
Not next Friday, September 17th. So we have a week and a half left.
All right. You can tell, you know, we do this enough and I just forget the dates. But so that's our fall 2023. And this is both for Americas and our EMEA batches. And then about every 6 months, we reopen them. So we'll reopen applications again in probably February of 24. I think as we get into questions, looks like maybe 2 have come in so far. Tracy, do you want to, you and I can maybe cover a couple recent wins? Because inevitably we do get questions about, hey, what are some results of TinySeed companies and potentially some recent wins for the accelerator?
Yeah, it's great to get to 5 years into the accelerator. So we have some really cool things happening with the first batch as we funded the 2019 and 2020 batch. Most exciting announcement we've had in a while is Squadcast from our 2020 batch was recently acquired by Descript. So huge win for those founders. Really happy for them. Really cool to see that some of these results, SaaS takes a little bit of time. And so now we're starting to see those results come in from those earlier batches.
Yep. And in addition, we have had a TinySeed company just recently in the past couple months raise their Series A. This was Builder Prime, and we announced it.
Also in 2020 batch.
Yep, also 2020. And that's the thing, as you said, being around 4 or 5 years is when things start to happen. So people used to say, like, we had funded 20 companies and we were 12 months in, and people say, have you had any exits yet? And it's like, slow down. Like, it's SaaS. It's a long, slow ramp of death. Like, give it a few years. And that's what's really starting to happen now.
And that's why we're here. We're hoping to accelerate it. But, it takes a little bit of time to work up your MMR because we do work with earlier stage companies.
Sure. Yep. And so, yes, Builder Prime raised their Series A, led by Blueprint Equity. And you can, of course, dig in more to these either through Google or if you hit the TinySeed.
They're all on our blog.
Yeah, we dig further in. And with that, Alex, you want to mention a few of the new amazing mentors that we've added recently?
Yes. So as most people know, mentorship is a big part of TinySeed, and we're lucky to have connections with some of the leading experts in SaaS and topics that are relevant to SaaS founders. So we're always looking to bring on new mentors as the program grows. And we've recently brought on a few that I just wanted to mention. They're especially in really high demand areas. The first one is in pricing. We have Marcos Rivera, founder of Pricing.io. In marketing, we brought on Mark Thomas, senior growth marketer at Podia. And in enterprise sales, we have Jen Abel, co-founder of J Jellyfish. So we're super excited to bring them on, expand our mentorship list. We're always adding new mentors and building those opportunities for the founders to connect with these experts. And
this is in addition to our stable of, frankly, world-class SaaS experts that have been with us. Most have been with us from the start. You have Heaton Shah of, of Crazy Egg and Kissmetrics. You have Samuel Hulick of User Onboard. You have Asia Aranjo of Demand Maven, Rand Fishkin, Leanna Patch, both the Basecamp founders.
We have like 50 mentors at this point.
Yeah. I can't run
too
through
many
them all,
to count.
It's an all-star list too. Yeah.
Yep. And so as before, we'll get to questions in just a second. Tracy, you want to give folks maybe a 60-second description of the program just to kind of level set? Because I think we'll get that question if we don't. They'll say, how's the program working?
We're just going to lay out the basics.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So the TinySeed Accelerator program is a year-long program. We have 2 location-based areas. So like I said, I manage the Americas program. Alex manages the EMEA program, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And we do that so we can it's a remote program and we have calls scheduled. So the Americas program are in the Americas time zones during those working hours. And then Alex's are in the EMEA time zone working hours. But largely these programs are, they're largely identical. And there's a lot of opportunities for folks if they're in the Americas program to attend EMEA calls and vice versa. But essentially it is a year-long remote program where we walk you through. In the first 3 months, we have our TinySeed playbook that shares. We built that to share our top pieces of advice around things like pricing and sales and lead generation and hiring. So first 3 months, we throw a lot of education at you. Then we start bringing in our mentors and running mentor calls on those like enterprise sales or onboarding or other niche topics within SaaS. But the one thing is that I want to mention is that it's a year-long program because it allows us to create that education in in a format that makes sense and kind of create that calendar of time of how we drip that information over. But once you're a TinySeed founder, you're a TinySeed founder, and all alumni get access to these calls that we schedule. They get access to those mentor calls. We often schedule alumni calls. So year-long program is so we can have that educational schedule. But really, once you're part of TinySeed, in that year and beyond, you have access to the mentors, you have access to the community, the support, office hours with Rob and Einar, and all the other benefits of being a TinySeed founder.
So far, far more than you will get from any other accelerator you apply to. I'm just going to be perfectly, and we did that on purpose. This is the point. Alex, before we dip into questions, you want to take us through, if someone wants to apply, how they do that and what the application process is like?
Yeah, I'll give a quick overview of how the application process looks like. So there's 3 stages. The first stage is going to be sending in your application. The second stage, your application, if we go through it and we decide to move forward with the interview, will be a first interview round. And then we wrap up the process with a second interview round. So the first interview round is going to be with either Tracy and I, depending on your region. The second interview will be with Rob and Einar. And then after those, we send out our final offers and move towards the program start of November 1st. A few things I always like to note with the application, especially, we keep the application purposely pretty short. It shouldn't take more than 10 to 15 minutes roughly, especially if you know your numbers. So our go-to phrase, and you'll probably hear us say it a few times on this call, is when in doubt, fill it out. It is easy. It's a good exercise. We usually hear from founders that we had one founder actually who would fill it out every season just as an exercise, a practice and kind of reviewing his numbers. And then he ended up joining the program. So that's just to say you should absolutely fill out. It doesn't take much time. We love to see it. And we also love to see reapplications. If you've applied before and it wasn't the right time, we would highly encourage you to reapply. There's no negative to reapplying. In fact, I'd say even there's a positive. We love to see people growing, seeing what what you've done in the last several months, and love catching up with people who've applied before. And then just like Tracy mentioned, applications will end September 17th, and you can fill those out at tinyseed.com/apply.
And when in doubt, fill it out. You're going to hear that a few more times during this live stream.
So many times.
And with that, let's dive into our
so many questions already.
Questions. Yeah, this is great. All right. So Gustavo on YouTube acted early, and he has the first question. Providing that a product, it's funny, Ron's on I can't read it. Because it says Ron right. All right, thanks, Ron. Provided that a product does not have MRR yet, what other signs or metrics would you be looking for in order to consider a startup eligible? Tracy?
Ooh, so the reason why we have this MRR requirement is
did you want to say the MRR requirement? Because
which is $500, $500 USD, so United States dollars. And the reason why we have this requirement, which is fairly low, is the way that someone builds a company differs, or like the things you have to go through and the things you have to investigate and what you're working on. It's different pre-revenue versus post-revenue. And all of TinySeed's education is assuming post-revenue. So before you have your customers, like we're hoping for folks who have achieved that initial inklings of success. They started to get their customer base, and now they're looking to expand that and grow that. But it's different when you're still looking for that initial customer base. So the MRR requirement is a pretty strong requirement to our application. And if you apply generally with 0 MRR, it's very likely that it's not the right time for you to join TinySeed.
Or
that
any
said,
accelerator, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Other than like like incubators, I think are the ones that are really there for help people to get to that like 0 to 1 level. But we do have a place where people can throw in other traction. So if they have, things that you can put it in, if you put in 0, it's going to pop up a little field and say, hey, can you expand on whatever traction you have? And things that you can put in there are like, are you a well-known personality or influencer, and you have a huge customer audience, you're just about to launch your app. So that's like an example of something that will give you a big bonus and potentially increase the amount of traction you have when you do launch. Newsletter signups. Rob, what else is out there?
I don't know. Alex,
yeah, I know. It's hard.
I'm
yeah,
busy
right.
reading the next question already.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's a good transition. The next question too, because it's a bit of a follow up, right?
Yes, it says it's from DeBoomGR.
So let me finish. I'll finish my spiel here. Then we're struggling on it because we are so revenue focused, right? So if there's anything out there you want us to know, you're saying like, hey, I might not have revenue, but I think I should still apply because when I launch, it's going to be big. Then I think that could be a potential sway. But I want to say we're very strict on that requirement. It would take a little bit of time. One thing I do recommend is
if you wait the 6 months, that's the point
you'll
where
get
you'll
there.
Actually, yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. But one thing I want to mention is that you still can apply with 0 MRR, so you get on our radar, and our system will attach your applications together. So you apply knowing that it's probably going to be like a thanks not now response. And 6 months later, then you reapply. Our system's like, hey, this person reapplied. And then we have that history. And that is huge. So I want to say is like, if you're going to apply with 0 MRR, you can put that traction stuff in. Kind of expect that it's probably not going to be the right time for TinySeed, but it can be a bonus in that we will see your application next time when you do have that revenue.
To give you context, I believe from memory, if we funded about 130 companies, I think we've funded 2 pre-revenue companies, and they were both in the first batch. And since then, this will be like batches 11 and 12. We have funded 0 since then. So that gives you an idea. Pre-revenue is just, it's just hard. I've been there myself. Next question is from Daboom GR on YouTube. Can we participate without revenue? I think we just answered that. And or without giving equity? And the answer to that is no. We're an accelerator. We're a venture firm, right? So we write checks in exchange for equity. If you don't want to give up equity, I don't know of any accelerator that doesn't take that. If you
want
coaching,
part of MicroConf.
Yeah, exactly. If you want coaching and help and education without giving equity, be part of MicroConf Connect. Attend MicroConfs. Get into a mastermind through MicroConf Mastermind Matching. Hire a coach. Hire an advisor, give equity for it. Well, I guess you don't want to give equity, but there are other ways around it, but it's not an accelerator and it's not TinySeed because our model is not sustainable if we don't take equity.
We want to be here for like decades, just funding companies and doing this job. And that unfortunately is a part of the, making it work for us.
So Raphael on YouTube asks, what should we enter in the revenue section if we have our first customers, but the contracts and payments start in December? So that's a couple months from now. So there is revenue, but it's not realized yet. Alex McQuade.
I think that's where that MRR clarification field comes in handy. You can put in either or, because we're going to read both fields. You could put 0 and then clarify the funds coming in, or either way, I would use that clarification field to make sure that we get the full context because we'll want to know that.
Right.
Yeah, and I should mention
by humans. We read through the application, so you can
every application we read and we answer all the questions. Yeah,
all 4 of us. Anar Bolsat, the other partner of TinySeed, is not here, but he's the 4th person in the review team, and we will email if we have questions. There'll be a dialogue. So it's not like you send the application and we get confused and we won't follow up with you. Like I'll send over an email to clarify things. So yeah, definitely use that clarification area to let us know if you have future contracts, things that will be happening soon. Another thing to mention is that if you submit your application and a new contract lands, so maybe it's like 2 days after the application was submitted and you're like, ooh, I want to send in that update. You can email us and we're happy to make those changes on our end. So we always want to post what your current revenue is. So if you have a recent win, feel free to submit the application early and just start a dialogue with us and we'll update those numbers for you.
Radid Technologies on YouTube asks, we have just launched our MVP 2 months ago. We are generating revenue so far with a very predictable rate. Ooh, that's good. Is that too early stage? Doesn't sound like it to me. If you're 500 or more, it's predictable. Please, if in doubt, fill it out.
Sounds great. Yeah. Especially a predictable
I know. We
rate.
got excited. Like, ooh, predictable rate.
Oh,
that's great. Yeah.
Send it in.
Sean on YouTube asks, do you require board seats or just 10 to 12% equity? We do not require board seats. In fact, I don't know of very many of our, are there, again, out of 130, are there like 3 of our companies that even have a board? 0?
Yeah.
1? Well, I guess if you raise this, there's a couple that
Series
have boards.
A. Yeah.
To date, we haven't. We have tried to make it as simple as possible. In some cases, we sign a safe with you, so there is no board seat. This is not a Series A. That's usually when board seats get involved. Good question. Thanks, Sean. Elliot on YouTube. Our product is ready. The marketing site is in development. We won't be ready by the time applications close. Can we apply pre-revenue to be able to showcase our product? I think we've kind of answered that.
Exactly what I said. Yep. Showcase your product. Understand that you're probably going to get a not right now email, but then it's in our system. And next time we can see that history.
And the nice thing, a lot of people we get emails often. They're similar to this, like I'm about to launch, we're really close. The nice thing too is that, operating 2 batches per year, we're only like 6 months away from the next batch. So most likely within those 6 months, you're going to be in a great spot and the timing works out well. You don't have to wait too long.
Next question is from Tassi Epif on YouTube. If a startup is in Africa, do you help them incorporate in the States? Tracy.
I mean, Alex, I'm going to punt it over to
Yeah, I
Alex
guess
since
he's
that's
the
part of his
EMEA.
program.
I can answer that one. So I actually clarify what help is. That might be useful. We do have, to keep kind of, what's the right word? Biases out. Our legal team won't be able to do that for you, but we do have his recommendations for resources that we have seen work well for other founders that have needed to incorporate in the States. So we'll be able to refer you to programs or legal teams or whatever resources you need that'll help start that process, and then let you take it from there.
Yeah, you want someone who's entirely on your side, you know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, otherwise there's conflict. So Stripe Atlas is often what we refer to people. It may or may not be a fit. You'll have to evaluate that.
And we have a code to help people get free incorporation and all that kind of stuff. So we can help in other ways too.
Right.
And our legal team, the incorporation is part of the process that you need to do it. So our legal team will be also double checking on our end to make sure everything's going fine. So it'll be a working process. We'll be there along the side too. We're not just going to throw you out and have you do that by yourself, but you will have your own resources to guide you as well.
Next question from the same asker. Are there options available to travel and scale in the States as well while still in the program? What do you think?
I can answer that one too.
Yeah.
This is definitely an EMEA question. It sounds like this founder is interested in expanding to the States, maybe traveling there to do sales or something. And I would say yes, in that case, definitely. I've had founders in the EMEA program who started out in their country of origin and eventually wanted to go to the US and travel during the program. I'd say the only thing to keep in mind is that, what the call times for the program are. So if you're traveling to the States, it might be a little bit more difficult to make some of the calls, but founders have regularly made it to work, and there's no issues on our part if you're taking that initiative.
Yeah, and I should clarify, the program itself, we don't have resources within the program on we have mentors who probably have this experience we can introduce it to, but the program calls and education that we have specifically set up for all the founders doesn't include how to expand to other countries. So this is something where we're happy to help you find resources, connect you to founders who've gone through the same thing. But if you're looking for a program and specifically kind of handhold you through that process, that's not part of TinySeed's program.
That's a good point.
The final question from the same asker. My last question is, how much does TinySeed invest in each startup, and is it dispersed in tranches? So our typical range is between 120,000 USD and 220. We have gone higher than that in certain cases. For example, we've had someone apply with $100,000 of MRR, and they want it in the program. And obviously, we have to be a little flexible there. It is not distributed in tranches. We hand it
lump sum
all at once, lump sum, once the docs are signed. Thanks for those questions. JP on LinkedIn asks, what changes have you made to the program based on learnings in the previous batch? And we need to keep this to 1 minute or 2 minutes.
I know, I got really excited. I could talk for an hour
exactly.
about this.
We have just, from the start where it was like, hey, let's all be on a group Zoom call every week and have some mentor stuff you can access, to today where it's a highly structured program with a proprietary playbook that people love, and mastermind groups that we break folks into, and a kickoff retreat that people rave about for years. All of that we've added based on our experience running the program. Anything else I missed, Tracy, you want to touch on?
Yeah, I will say the most recent change, and one that's really exciting to me, is that, like I said, it's 5 years since the program. We have founders in our 2019, 2020, and 2021 batches are starting to reach these incredible levels of success. And we're starting to, I love our mentors. Our mentors are great. We're starting to rely less on our mentors. And now we're doing a lot of internal information sharing between founders. And this is actually something we're going to be focusing on in the next 3 months for our current batches. We're bringing on Craig Hewitt of Castos is coming on to do a presentation on sales. We have Jade of Glitch Secure. They're doing a presentation on SaaS security, and that's their expertise. So we still schedule these calls with our mentors. We have expert mentors, but we're starting to get expert founders. And I'm super excited to start evolving the program to utilize these voices. Because the mentors are great, but often they're running their own consulting firms. And I love to see founders talking to other founders because there's this innate connection between TinySeed, that they're saying program, and it's a lot easier to not easier, but sometimes it's more informal and more fun to be going founder to founder with our founder experts.
It's a good question. Thanks for asking. Alexi Alexinko on YouTube asks, hi, I have solid IT experience, but I don't have an app or specific idea. Can I join your program? If not, what are the mandatory requirements in such a case? So yeah, the answer is no, we don't come up, and that would be an incubator you'd want to look for. I don't know of any accelerators that will take you pre-idea. There are some other models. Venture Studio, or Startup Studio or Venture Studio, I believe, is where they bring someone in when they already have an idea. It's a whole different model. But the mandatory requirements, I think we've talked about $500 of MRR product that's in the wild, and at least $500. Lath on YouTube asks, is the funding amount for the 120 to 220K for 10 to 12% strict, regardless of traction? Generally, yes. It's a bell curve. Basically, almost everyone, 80, 90% falls within that range. And then there are these outliers. Again, so if you apply with 100K MRR, then obviously we're going to be flexible with you. Also, we have what's called a syndicate, where you can definitely have valuations that are a lot different than what the 120 to 220K spells out. And so these days, if someone comes to us and says, hey, I have 60, 70, 80K MRR and the accelerator itself is less important to me, then we will often refer to the syndicate, which is a big group of, it's basically, an email list we have of a bunch of investors who might be interested in putting money in. And we've raised quite a bit.
In TinySeed startups. So the accelerator might not make sense for you in where you are in the stage of the company, but you want funding for various reasons. If you go to tinyseed.com/syndicate, it'll go through the reasons why you might want to go in that direction over the accelerator.
Right. And I think maybe the underlying question behind that question is, your valuation is X. I can get money at a higher valuation from angel investors, right? And should I do that, or why should I use TinySeed? TinySeed is not the cheapest money. We will never be the cheapest money. You can go to dentists, you can go to an angel group, you can go to whoever, smart money, dumb money, whatever. None of them have the year-long program, the mentorship from world-class mentors, the in-person retreat, the mastermind matching, the community, our Slack channel, which invaluable and people rave about. What comes, it's like comparing maybe buying a Kia to a Mercedes and saying, well, they're both cars and one is cheaper and one is more expensive. And we are the Mercedes of funding, where we bring all this other expertise and all this value, and that's expensive, to be honest. And so, our funding valuations are in line with what we need to make this a sustainable approach. As Tracy said, to run TinySeed for 10 or 20 years, that's where we are.
Yeah. It's like buying a book versus going into university. It's a different experience.
Tim on YouTube asks, how do you compare to other bigger accelerators? Especially, there are only a couple bigger accelerators in us. What's funny, I mean, with the amount we fund each year and how many we funded, there's not that many.
Getting up there.
Yeah. How do you compare to other bigger accelerators, especially in terms of benefits to solo tech founders?
I think I have a thought on this one. I'd say one thing, I don't know, maybe when they're thinking bigger accelerators, they might be thinking of, there's just a lot of accelerators that are maybe focused more on broad startup education. And something to highlight is that, of course, TinySeed is focused specifically on B2B SaaS. So what you're going to find there is that our education is more targeted towards what you're actually going through, what the challenges you're trying to overcome, the growth that you're trying to obtain. That's what our education is focused on. And it's one of the reasons that we have our layout of who is the right fit for the program, because our program is made for that business model. So I think that's something you often won't find in a larger accelerator. And sometimes I would say too, I think Tracy and I were actually talking about this other day, is batch size. Our batches tend to be in the 10 to 20 company range. And one of the beautiful things about that is that you get to connect and build relationships with a small group of founders as you go through the program. So that relatively small batch size is I would argue, really beneficial for that kind of inter-founder relationship building. It kind of becomes more difficult once you get these huge batch sizes.
We have had multiple companies get offers from us and other big name accelerators, and go to TinySeed because of our B2B SaaS focus. If you are B2B SaaS, I believe we are the gold standard. I don't know of another accelerator that will give you more truly actionable, in-depth advice and mentorship on growing your company. Tim's second question is, how many applications do you expect based on past programs? So Tim, we don't necessarily talk about, individual batch application counts. I will say we've had many thousands of applications across all of them. And I believe we accept we have about a 2% acceptance rate, sometimes up to 3%. I mean, early on it was like 1%, and then it's in the 2 to 3% acceptance rate, I think is probably what you're getting at.
Yeah, we've, and I want to say this round has been pretty exciting compared to other rounds. It has been larger than expected, and that makes me very happy.
Yeah, it is exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Austin on YouTube asks, what if MRR is spread between multiple SaaS apps from one corporate entity?
Interesting. I would think it'd have to do with how that they interconnect and time that the founder or founders are spending between those entities. Because if one was super taking off and there's a few others they're working on, but their focus is split, I think this is where we have to have follow-up questions and really dig into that specific situation and figure out how that works. And does it still make sense for them to join TinySeed?
Right. So one requirement of TinySeed is that you go full-time. When you accept our funding, you go full-time on your product. Now, if you have multiple products, we would invest in a corporate entity. So we would own, equity in all of those products.
Whatever ones are in that entity.
Right. And you can't do side projects because otherwise you're not focused. Like I want to call out here as an advisor or perhaps a virtual mentor to some of you. I don't see companies succeeding and getting to millions in revenue without focus. No one I know is doing the indie hacker dream of 12 different companies and packaging together into a big portfolio. There's like 3 people on Twitter doing that of the tens of thousands that are trying to do it. I was the first one to do this and talk about it publicly back between 2005 and 2010. I know what it's like to have a portfolio of amazing little lifestyle apps that are generating, 6 figures in ARR. I would encourage you to apply and clarify. Yeah, this app is doing this app is doing that. We have funded a small number of companies that have multiple apps. Usually what happens is pretty quickly they realize, one of these is the winner, and I'm going to either merge the other one in or I'm going to sell it off for cash to grow, the bigger one. There have been a couple exceptions to that where they're highly related. It's like 2 or 3 e-commerce apps, and like one is a Shopify app and one is a not Shopify app. And so they are technically separate and money comes in different ways, but it's basically the same functionality in a couple different things. So that's what I would do. I would apply and then clarify. It's Lasan on YouTube asks, I'm from Sri Lanka and an international CSE computer science engineering undergrad at University of Plymouth in the UK. Currently, I'm building a SaaS application and planning to migrate to the UK or the US in the next couple of years. Any possibility of joining? So, if you're not launched yet, you don't want to apply yet. But in terms of, let's say in theory that it's Lasan had $1,000 of MRR and was asking this question. I'm a student in the UK and I'm going to migrate here, and considering the UK or the US, like what does it matter? Does it matter?
In this situation, if you're currently in Sri Lanka, and actually I would say this applies to anybody in South Asia in general, I would apply for the EMEA program, and assuming you're going to be there for the next year, that would make the most sense. Also, obviously migrating to the UK, but in general, we recommend sometimes people are located in countries that aren't perfectly in the regions that we've laid out. So for EMEA, we often recommend that people that are in South Asia apply for the EMEA program because that's the closest time zone. For people that are in Australia, we usually recommend that you apply. Or East Asia, you apply for the Americas program. So for those people that are applying in areas that are not right within the regions, are wondering, can I apply? The answer is yes, you can definitely apply. Look at the time zones, and keep in account that we usually hold calls usually in the afternoon, and kind of look at the time zone differences and decide what would work best for your lifestyle and apply for that one. But you're still eligible. Anybody from any country can apply. You'll just want to make sure that the time zone differences will work all right with you personally.
Yeah, so let me emphasize it's the very important points there. It's a fully remote program. People can be anywhere. So, and you, as Alex said, you can apply wherever accelerator makes sense for you based on those time zones, but you can be anywhere and you can be traveling anywhere and you can just work on the road. And all of our calls, even if you can't attend them live, they're not required. We love you, like, attending live is encouraged because you can leave questions and have that interaction with the mentor or whoever's or the playbook when we're doing the Q&A there, but they're all recorded because we know founders are busy. They're often traveling. We have a lot of Australian founders where, they can attend certain calls live, but a lot of times they don't want to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning to join the Americas calls. So, you can be anywhere. You don't even have to attend things live. We recommend it because we try to create the system to work based on your schedule.
Raphael on YouTube asks, your application asks if we would be willing to move the company to a US, UK, France, or Ireland corporate entity. I want to be clear, doesn't mean the founders have to move. It just means reincorporate US, UK, France, or Ireland. How important is that in your decision process? We are a GmbH in Germany. I would say still apply. It depends. Honestly, it depends. If you are a super strong applicant and we're just falling over ourselves to fund you, we're willing to work with you. If you are early, it will count against you. And even if you're not early, it'll count against you. And here's why. There are certain companies that we, having funded 130 companies in however many countries we've done it, 20, 30 countries where people live, we have found that certain countries, unfortunately, get in their own way. And so, for example, Germany is one that is really expensive for us to fund in. So imagine we're writing 120,000 USD check, and our legal bill to fund one company in Germany has averaged between $25,000 and $30,000. And in the US, it's like $1,000, right? It's a crazy difference. So that's where it does depend on the country. But certainly Germany specifically, since you called it out, it sucks. It sucks that it's that way, but this is the way it is.
We want to work with you. It's the country.
Right. It's red tape and it's whatever else. In addition, even the timeframes to get approval from local city government bodies has taken 6 months, 9 months versus 12 days, in certain other places where we're trying to fund. So we take it into account. It's not, nothing's black and white. It's not don't apply. It's not you won't get in, but it is, there are certain things that just make it harder and or more expensive. And that's why we ask those questions. We know if you are incorporated in the US, UK, France, or Ireland, it's a slam dunk for us. It's a real quick close and it is very inexpensive for both parties.
And just to follow up that, because we have had a lot of companies in this scenario that have reincorporated, I just want to emphasize we've had companies do it, and it's not as scary as it sounds. It's a little bit of a bureaucratic jump through, but it's every batch we have founders who reincorporate, and some founders actually have found that it's been to their benefit, especially if they were reincorporating in the US. We can talk about that during during the interview process, but there are certain benefits to being incorporated in other countries in the long term, especially if you're going to be either seeking additional funding down the line or when a potential M&A sales opportunity comes in the future. We've seen some benefits there. So there's also some pros on the founder side for that as well.
And we have a follow-up question from producer Ron. He says, any other countries that are known to be difficult?
The issue, there are some countries that are difficult, but the main issue really is that for every country, new country that we try to, let's say, invest in directly, we essentially have to set up an entirely new system of infrastructure. We have to find new lawyers, we have to build new documents. So for a program to, essentially have legal representation in as many countries as there are, especially in the EMEA region, is nearly impossible. It would be a huge undertaking. Right. So realistically, we have to pick a few countries that are doable, and we can build a legal team in and stay focused on those. That's the real
Right. And by
difficulty, to be
comparison,
honest.
like we fund in a lot more countries than say Y Combinator. Y Combinator does 3 as far as I know.
That's
And
true. We
we
do.
fund
Yeah.
in, I think we funded in, I don't know the number, but it's a lot more than 3.
Yeah.
Cecilia,
I mean, a lot of companies, I always say, is like, it's not just like C Corps in the US too. We also do LLCs, which is different than a lot of other accelerators or investment funds out there.
Cecilia on YouTube asks, at what size MRR/growth would you say a company is too big to get the best benefit from the program? So no growth numbers are too high ever. There is no such thing as growing too fast. At what size in terms of MRR? I would say it's up to the founder, but again, it's a bell curve. And we have had folks up to 100,000 of MRR apply, get into the program, and take our funding. I think the 80-90% is probably when you get north of about, I'd say 40 or 50K of MRR, monthly recurring revenue. I think the syndicate might be a better fit.
And if you apply at those numbers, you're almost, I would say you're pretty much guaranteed to get a call from us or a follow-up because those numbers are too big. And in those follow-ups, we can talk with you about what the program looks like, what does the education look like, does it make sense for you? And we can, punt you over to the syndicate if that makes sense. For that company that came in a really high revenue requirement, the program wasn't something they were interested in. They wanted to be part of the network and they wanted to have access to those mentors. And so, the educational stuff that we do where it's like, hey, how to get started with enterprise sales, how to do effective enterprise sales. They knew all that, but they wanted to have access to the voices, access to Rob and Einar, access to the community to help them grow. And that made it worth it for them to join the accelerator.
JP on LinkedIn asks, what do you anticipate the remote versus on-site split will look like for TinySeed sessions? Alex McQuade.
Yeah, the program is, like Tracy mentioned earlier, is a remote first program. So there is no on-site or in-person requirement in terms of you will have to be here like some accelerators. That said, we do have a kickoff retreat at the beginning of the program year where we bring together all of the founders in your batch and we have 2 to 3 days where we're masterminding together. We review one of the playbooks in person and we give everyone a chance to kind of build interpersonal relationships, start to get to know each other. It's a great time. It's not required. What I like to say is if you can make it, I highly recommend it because the value is there. But it's not a part of our decision on whether you'll be able to get into the program. And it's also it's not the all end all be all of the program. It's one opportunity, but the remainder of the program is online. We also have opportunities later in the year, that we're planning get-togethers, other opportunities for founders to come together. But again, those are just opportunities. Also, shout out to JP. I'm noticing you've asked a lot of questions. These are really good ones. Thanks, JP.
I'm actually really excited about the next one from JP.
I'll let you take the next one.
Their next question. Who from our founding team, if you apply and you get into TinySeed, who from the founding team is in the TinySeed program? In other words, in masterminds, in-person meetups, in the Slack channel. Is it just the CEO or is it the whole founding team? Tracy.
I got excited about this because this is a brand new question and I'm really excited about new ones. And that is a great question because you see accelerators out there where, you see the leaders of the company, in which case Rob and Einar are the GPs of TinySeed and the heads of TinySeed. And the playbooks, I mentioned earlier, the kind of schedule, the educational schedule we do, we have the 3 months of our playbooks of our top information we want to impart to our founders, and Rob and Einar are on all of those. When we roll into mentor calls, and by say, the program directors, me and Alex, we'll be on every call, one of us. Rob and Einar are obviously super busy, so they're on the playbooks, those most important ones. They often show up to our mentor calls, but they'll be less likely. The masterminds, Rob and a program director. So for Americas, it'll be Rob and me. For EMEA, it'll be Rob and Alex popping on the first couple to help get things started. And then the masterminds roll into the being founder led. But the thing the overall thing I want to impart here is that we are very involved. We're a very small team. It's a 4-person accelerator program team. And Alex and I are everywhere, no matter what. And then we bring in Rob and Einar as much as possible when it makes sense. That said, we also have office hours for all TinySeed founders. So they get that one-on-one time with the GPs whenever they want. And I think we've done a really good job of making sure that everyone is on the team is involved as much as possible.
And I want to chime in as well. If you're wondering, what is a founder? How do we define a founder? Because we've had folks say, well, there are 9 founders. I own 90%. Or 91%, and then these other 8 people each own 1% of the company. And it's like, well, they're not founders, right?
I think I misunderstood. I was thinking founders of TinySeed, but I think you're right. This is whoops.
They're asking.
Well, there's some extra information about TinySeed.
Yes, but basically, it's JP's original question, like who from their founding team participates in the program, masterminds, meetups, and Slack, and the answer is all co-founders. But a co-founder needs to be full-time on the company, and they need to own at least 15% of the equity. And again, there are reasons that those 2 things exist that we probably won't go into today, but those folks are able to. So we've had founding teams ranging from 1, most common is 1 or 2, and we've had founding teams up to 4, I'm pretty sure, and they all are able to participate.
But if you want to, on that note, just very quickly, if you look at our blog, we do have a blog post that talks about some of the things that we look at in a TinySeed application. There's like another blog post talking about how much we love solo founders. And so keep that in mind. If you're a solo founder, we love solo founders. You can execute fast. You can get things done. Please apply. When he said 4 founding team, I had this little note of being like, we have a whole paragraph on founding team sizes.
Whole blog post, yeah.
Whole blog post, a whole section in that thing talking about large founding teams. So take a look at the blog. I want to say it's like what we look for in the TinySeed application are things to know, but like best fit SARPs or TinySeed. That's what it is. And we have a thing on basically 4 founders on a team. It can, as compared to a solo founder who can execute fast, a lot of founders can execute really slowly. And there's other things in there, but take a look at that. That is your case.
We have seen detrimental impact of too many founders, 3 and 4. They can work. They usually have run into issues and grind to a halt at a certain point. All right. Sean on YouTube asks, you mentioned Kickoff Retreat. Is there a periodic in-person component to the TinySeed program? Or is it just the Kickoff Retreat and then at microconfs?
I see Tracy is like ready to answer this one because it's an exciting answer we've got now.
You can. I'm just going to make a little. I'll be your background cheerleader.
I'll hand it over to you. But the answer is yes. There are other periodic opportunities. The Kickoff Retreat is a big start. MicroConf is an opportunity to meet other founders, and we commonly have founders coming into it. But we also build in opportunities tied sometimes to the Kickoff Retreats. Sometimes we'll build in an extra day or 2 for founders who are in the area to come. And this is where I'll hand it over to Tracy. We're excited. We're building a new event that's going to be just for TinySeed founders. Tracy, Tracy. This is all Tracy's idea.
I can't say too much about it because we haven't
give it
announced
away?
it officially. Oh, no. I wanted to hint at it because if there's a TinySeed founder that's on this, they know it's coming because we've been beating around the bush for a while about this. But we have gotten to the size where we have over 200 founders. And so it just makes sense to have something yearly just for TinySeed founders. And that's all I'll say. So we'll have some information about that soon, but there's something in the works. And we think it's going to be a really exciting component to the program so that folks who are part of the TinySeed program know that there's something yearly at the same time in the same place, probably, that they can look forward to.
Slay the Programmer on YouTube asks, the problem with most accelerators I've seen is they fall into the realm of former founders, but I think it means repeat serial founders, 2nd time, 3rd time founders, being king or queen. How does a new founder, a first-time founder, stand above former founders in an application? And I would say by building a great business. That's it. The reason 2nd time, 3rd time founders get a nod or an extra, look is because usually they've built a great business. And that's how I evaluate founder. Do I think this founder can build an amazing business? If they've already done it once, the odds are good they can do it twice. So for you, build a great business with your first one. I will say that the vast majority of TinySeed applicants are first-time founders. We get some 2nd and 3rd time founders, but most are first time. So I wouldn't be scared off or thinking that everyone who joins TinySeed is a 2nd or 3rd time founder.
It's a value add for the program makes sense because we're throwing a lot of education out there. And as a first time founder, you're doing so much information gathering that we can help direct you into the right place.
Kevin on YouTube asks, what is the biggest strength your program has to offer within the mentorship expertise part? Is it advice on strategy, marketing, sales, customer success, development, etc.? Oh, it's such a good question.
Alex?
All of the above.
Yeah, that is the answer. Yeah, all of the above.
Yeah.
And I just had a thought come to mind because I've sometimes had people ask about mentorship. Sometimes they think like, different programs, sometimes you're assigned like one mentor that oversees it. And that's a good clarification to make, is that our mentors are specifically in all these different topics so that they're available to you when you need them on those topics. So every topic, Kevin, that you mentioned, we have a mentor on, and we're very particular about the mentors that we invite on. They're all truly topic experts on this. So you can count on that if you're talking to somebody on one of these topics, that they really are a leader and they're going to be able to give you guidance, advice, and help you move forward at a pace you wouldn't be able to probably by yourself.
We try to look at what are the struggles that a SaaS founder goes through in building their company. And all of those topics are struggles that are pretty universal across all these SaaS companies, which is why we really work on making sure we have coverage in all of those areas. If there is something like how to build a front-end web app in Angular, that's not part of the TinySeed program, because that won't apply to people who are building B2B SaaS startups. So that's kind of like, is it something that universally applies to B2B SaaS, we're probably going to have something to cover that.
Yeah, and that's what makes TinySeed great, is when I say all of the above, I mean, we are really, really good at all of the above across internally and our mentors. If you apply to let's say, a large accelerator that funds consumer packaged goods and hardware startups, and also there's some B2B SaaS in there, and then there's some other, there's no way they can go as deep on all the topics you mentioned, because marketing for SaaS, B2B, is different than marketing for consumer packaged goods, and different for e-commerce sites, and different for hardware. Strategy is different. Sales are different. Customer success is everything. Almost everything is slightly different. And so I could give generalized startup advice. I could write a book called The Startup Playbook and just give general startup advice. There's tons of them out there. And what I found, the reason I write books and the reason we started TinySeed and MicroConf, is I got so frustrated with this general high-level advice that didn't actually work for me. It didn't apply to B2B SaaS. And so that's where we try to be very specific and quite prescriptive with what we're able to offer. Abby on YouTube asks, is there a disadvantage to being a solo founder versus a team? No, there is not. We love solo founders. I think the majority of companies we've funded have one founder, and that's the bootstrapped, the MicroConf TinySeed ecosystem of bootstrap companies worldwide. The majority are single founders. Tim on YouTube, I'm lightning rounding because we have 8 minutes and we have 8 questions. So, and more are coming in. So Tim on YouTube asks, do you accept companies that are incorporated in the EU? Yes.
As long as you're incorporated in the UK, Ireland, France, and actually we don't have it listed, but probably Estonia. If not, we'll talk about reincorporation, and it's all possible.
And we've done all of that with our companies. Mihai on YouTube asks, we've recently launched our product. We are generating revenue with a product that has a one-time payment. Our current revenue is more than $500 a month and growing. Our customers are asking for other services, which will place us into recurring revenue instead of just one-off payments. Are we suitable for the program? So I believe, here's what I will say. If in doubt, fill it out. It's 10 or 15 minutes. We'll take a look. Of the 130 companies we funded, 131, I don't think that any of them have been one-time payment companies. I don't think any of them. Now, there are some exceptions where we've funded folks who they're not in your exact situation, but they were, let's say, we also say we don't do B2C, and we funded like one B2C company that was moving into B2B and they were well into it. So it's a transition period. That's where I say it just kind of depends. You're not excluded. Like no one's excluded from filling out, the application. A big thing we look at is minimum revenue. And then everything else is always like, well, it kind of depends. If you're at 20 or 30K a month and you're default to live and you're growing fast and we see a trajectory for really easy implementation of recurring revenue, well, oh my gosh, I'm going to jump at that chance. If you're selling for $29 a month, $29 one-time lifetime and $50 one-time lifetime, and you've built up to a couple K, 2-3K in MRR, like I'm less interested in that business. It's not a no. If in doubt, fill it out. But just to give you an idea, it's all a spectrum.
But as you can imagine, if you're selling one-time payments, there's probably going to be a plateau you hit. There's a reasons why you want to have that recurring revenue. So it's not just us trying to be biased. It's us trying to help you build a super successful business. And a lot of it involves setting up that recurring revenue.
Right. We've seen so many businesses succeed, so many businesses not succeed. And there are patterns that we like recurring revenue that we look for. Franz on YouTube asks, I'm from the Philippines. My business is a Delaware LLC. Where should I apply? Are there different requirements per region? Alex.
Americas, but not because you're incorporated in the US, because that is the closest time zone difference. So make sure that's going to work for you, but that would be the closest. Just a reminder, where you're incorporated is not the requirement. We have European companies that are incorporated in the US. And are there different requirements? No, exactly the same requirements for both programs. You'll be judged just like the other program.
And if you really prefer the EMEA call schedule, if you're someone who likes this, I forget what the time zone difference would be. But for example, if a 2 a.m. call is something that works for your schedule because that's what you do, that's great. Then join the other accelerator. And this is also something we have a conversation with in the interview stage. So we feel free, just because you put in your application, we have Americas, EMEA, or don't know, because we will ask those questions to the don't know folks. So you don't even have to choose an accelerator. But even if you get to the offer stage, we've moved people at the offer stage because we chat with them and it just made sense for them to join a different accelerator.
Yep. Azatris on YouTube asks, what about a tiny country like Estonia for investing that is known for its lack of bureaucracy and ease of doing business fully digitally? Alex, I believe you just mentioned that. We haven't invested in Estonia, but we have discussed it internally.
No, we have actually.
Have we? Okay.
Yep. So I'm pretty sure, we'll talk about it in the process, but I'm pretty sure we are able to do Estonia. That should be good.
So that might be another one. All right. David Luckvold on YouTube. I don't need funding, but I'd like to be part of a community and in an accountability group. I also need help finding the right programmer. Is this program a fit for me? No, it is not. MicroConf. It's an amazing community. You can, an accountability group, go to microconf.com/masterminds, apply to be in that. And then, there's a bunch of programmers there if you're looking for them. But if you don't need funding, then you don't want to go to an accelerator. Khaled on YouTube, do you think online education B2C is still viable? If yes, is this a field you invest in? So is it a viable business? Yes. Is it something TinySeed invests in? No, not if it's B2C. We have invested in a couple online education companies, and both of them have had a B2B component to them, where they are selling to other businesses, not individual programmers trying to learn a front-end development skill, for example. All right. Danielo on YouTube asks, do you accept founders from the Ukraine if one cannot leave the country yet?
Absolutely. We'd love to see you apply, and you do not need to leave the country. That won't be an issue.
We have funded companies in Ukraine. Tim on YouTube, could you give me an idea on the impact on traction or / growth of companies that go through the program? Can you compare them to some benchmark? Is there a significant difference? As far as I know, yes. Anecdotally, yes. And in addition, if you go to tinyseed.com/program, you can see a diagram where we have a few revenue graphs of some folks implementing our pricing feedback early on and see the change.
Pricing's a big one. It's a lever that we try to help you adjust to something that works for you early in the program, because it'll pay dividends really early on and through the rest of the program.
We have 3 minutes left, and I'm looking to see. All right.
One more.
Anant on YouTube, what are your thoughts on the state of the U.S. global economy and its impact on SaaS startups?
It's a big one.
That's a very
we can hit that in 3 minutes, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. Bottom line is, with scrappy, bootstrapped, and mostly bootstrapped B2B SaaS startups, unless it's another 2008 or 2009 type situation where everything freezes up, they are like cockroaches. They survive and they never die. So funded companies implode and fail when they run out of money or can't raise funding. Bootstrapped companies run out of money when the founder loses motivation. That's it.
I like Indy on that. That's great.
Yeah.
That is a good note. Yeah.
Appreciate everyone's questions. This was once again an amazing session, and we are even checking out early.
Is this early?
Yeah, I know.
Alex and I
2
have a
minutes,
call we're
that's-
running in 2 minutes. So this is probably good.
Yes.
We'll be
Well-
running into, I mean, I'm going to brag. We have Jane and Benedict of Userlist, our 2020 batch. I was talking about the founders doing calls. I forgot to mention them. We're doing a whole call for TinySeed founders on SaaS onboarding and emails. So, if you're part of TinySeed, you would be jumping onto this call with us immediately after this.
Yes. And Zakani from YouTube asks, which African countries do you have presence in or have you funded SaaS businesses in? I would say we will fund in any African country. So
Yep. Just as long as
that's probably
that's same requirements as everyone else.
Right.
Strong business.
That's the 10-second answer. As we roll out, applications are open now. They end September 17th. TinySeed.com/apply if you want to apply. If in doubt, fill it out. And you can reach out to our team via Twitter, TinySeed Fund, or email hello@tinyseed.com. And Alex and Tracy are on the other
Send them
end
over.
of that.
We're very fast at responding. And I want to say, as we're wrapping up, we believe in fast responses. We believe in fast decisions. We believe in always getting back to someone. So if you send an application, you're going to hear back from us at some point. We try to be a very on top of team, like top of it, because we want you to apply. So please reach out to us and we'll get back to you ASAP if you need it.
Thank you, everyone, for coming today and asking your amazing questions. From Tracy, Alex, and myself, we wish you an amazing week, and we hope to see your application.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.